بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الإمام زين العابدين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه: وأما حق أبيك فتعلم أنه أصلك وأنك فرعه وأنك لولاه لم تكن، فمهما رأيت في نفسك مما يعجبك فاعلم أن أباك أصل النعمة عليك فيه، واحمد الله واشكره على قدر ذلك ولا قوة إلا بالله. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The passage in question is taken from Risalat al-Huquq of Imam Zayn al-Abidin salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli alayhi, and concerns the rights of the father in Islamic thought. Risalat al-Huquq is viewed as one of the greatest pieces of both Arabian and historic literature within Islamic thought, and is placed alongside the Nahj al-Balagha in terms of its guidance from the Imams of Ahl al-Bayt. In order to understand the greatness of this passage, we need to first understand the context in which it was written. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, as we know, was born in the 38th year after Hijrah. On the 10th of Muharram, therefore, he was 23 years of age, because Karbala and the event of Ashura happened on the 61st year after Hijrah. He was not able to support his father on that day due to an illness which had struck him on his journey towards Karbala alongside his father. And indeed you find that although on the 10th of Muharram in the afternoon he tried to help his father, the illness was to prove too strong and he was not able to be alongside his father. That's why one narration mentions very clearly that he states to his father and to those around him, he states, "Give me a sword and give me a stick." When they ask him why, he says, "Give me a stick so I may stand up, and a sword so that I'm able to defend my father." His father comes towards him and he says to him that you are the proof of Allah on earth after me, and that you have to remain in order that you are able to guide the Muslims after me. Therefore you find that he was not able to support his father on the 10th of Muharram. And this, without a shadow of doubt, would remain with him for the rest of his life. The Imam lived for 34 years after the 10th of Muharram. And in those 34 years, you find that there were many an occasion where he'd remember the events of Karbala. And the idea that you'd find that Abu Hamza al-Thamali himself narrates that when I'd come to the Imam, I'd see him crying and crying, remembering what's happened on the 10th of Muharram. And I'd say to him very clearly that why is it that you cry so much when you Ahlul Bayt have experienced more than this and are used to these calamities? To which he replied by saying that Prophet Yaqub cried so much until he became blind for how much he cried for Yusuf, whereas he did not see his sons killed in front of him. I saw 17 members of my family killed in front of me on the plains of Karbala. How can I not stop from remembering? On many occasions, the memory of Karbala would still be with him. Without a shadow of doubt, it would still be around him in his life. And you find that many a weaker personality may have been affected by the incident. As in, until today in psychology, there is what is known as post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder affected people who fought at Vietnam, for example, or people who fought in the Gulf War in 91. Because when they come back from these wars, they are severely affected by what they saw in these wars. They are not able to recuperate, as in the battlefield in itself is very difficult for a soldier to recover back into society having seen what he's seen within the war. And you therefore find that the Imam himself, if he had been a weaker person, would never have been able to recuperate. Yet the strength of the Imam was that he knew that he had a role to play in the society that surrounded him. His first role, of course, would be to disseminate the knowledge which he inherits. His second role would be to protect the sunnah of his great-grandfather. His third role in the 34 years after he lived, after Karbala, was to reform the Islamic society within which he lived. Why? Many times speakers, when they speak about the Imam, they speak about him in a very emotional way. As in, whenever you hear the name of the Imam, you always hear them saying that he cried after Karbala, he was sad after Karbala, he never was able to recover after Karbala. Yet the point is that nobody examines Zayn al-Abidin, the reformer of Islam. Zayn al-Abidin, after Karbala, sought to reform Islamic society. He recognized that the society within which he was living was the very society which praised his great-grandfather. As in the Imam himself narrates, when I went to Sham, when I entered upon Sham, as soon as we entered, me and Zainab and Kulthum, when we entered, a man came towards me and cursed me. He came towards me and he said, "May Allah curse you and curse your family." The Imam looked at him and he said to him, "Do you know who we are?" He said, "No, we just heard that a group of rebels were killed at Karbala, so I've come to curse you." He said, "Have you read in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى." He said to him, "Have you read in the Quran, it says, I do not ask from you anything except love for my family?" The person said, "Yes." He said, "Have you read in the Quran, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ وَلِلرَّسُولِ وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى?" He said to him, "Yes, of course." He said, "Have you read in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا." He said to him, "Of course I have." He said, "Do you know who this refers to, these verses?" He said to him, "No, I don't." He said, "It refers to us, Ahlul Bayt. The people you are cursing when we've entered Sham, you are cursing us." Imam recognized that the very people who had killed Imam al-Hussein were the very people who in their salah say La ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah. He noticed therefore that the society within which he lived was a society that required complete reform. That society, 50 years after the Holy Prophet had died, were willing to kill the grandson of the man who brought the religion. So he decided that instead of after Karbala, me just sitting down and crying because my dad got killed, let me reform the ummah of my grandfather. Let me reform it. Let me bring them back towards their roots. The way he did this was in a number of ways. He began to write certain works which would allow a person to gain closeness towards their Lord. One of these works which he wrote, for example, As-Sahifa Sajjadiyya. As-Sahifa Sajjadiyya is with us until today. It's a book of supplications. Today in the world you have Kabbalah, you have Sufism, you have Buddhism. I tell you, in their spirituality, none of them come near Zayn al-Abidin's Sahifa Sajjadiyya. As-Sahifa Sajjadiyya and its spirituality, why did he write it? He wrote it because he wanted these people to return to having a relationship with their Lord again. The very people who killed his father were the very people who said La ilaha illallah, were the very ones who said Muhammad Rasulullah, but their connection with their Lord was gone. He wrote As-Sahifa Sajjadiyya because what is dua? وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِ عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِي. That Sahifa Sajjadiyya was a way in which you were able to bring back a relationship between the creation and the creator. But his other work is a fundamental and a magnanimous document that exists with us until today, known as Risalat al-Huquq. Risalat al-Huquq, in my opinion, if someone asks you in the 21st century, what is Islam? Say to them, Risalat al-Huquq. Someone will say, Sayed Ammar, what do you mean Risalat al-Huquq? Islam is the Quran. I say the Quran, when you read it, unless you have context of its verses, you'll find some things which you won't understand. Risalat al-Huquq, on the other hand, is a simple document written thousands of years before any UN Treaty of Human Rights. Zayn al-Abidin takes you to the very depths of rights of humanity. He began to build society a picture of the different rights, which if we enjoin them, we can build a healthier society. As in the world today, you have the UN Declaration of Human Rights. You have the Magna Carta, let's say, from its time originally. You have the rule of law. You have all these different documents of rights. Yet how many people in the world have read Risalat al-Huquq? Risalat al-Huquq in English, what is it? It's the treaties of rights. In the world today, we Muslims have a problem, especially we, the followers of Ahlul Bayt. We cocoon our personalities to ourselves and we don't let the world share them. It's as if we say, Zayn al-Abidin is ours, you can't have him. Whereas the reality is, Zayn al-Abidin is for every human being. When he wrote Risalat al-Huquq, what was the aim? The aim was that you as a human being should know that everything that surrounds you has a haqq over you, a right over you. There are 51 rights in Risalat al-Huquq. The right of God, the right of the nafs, the right of your tongue, the right of your eye, the right of your stomach, the right of salah, the right of fasting, the right of hajj, the right of charity, the right of your mother, the right of your father, the right of your wife, the right of your teacher, the right of the mueddin, the right of the non-Muslim. All of these rights, they were there to tell you what? That you as a human being, you don't live in this world alone. You and the human being, you have a Lord who puts you in this world who has rights on you. Your very existence, your very physical makeup has rights on you. The people who live around you, be they Muslim or non-Muslim, have rights on you. That document, if you are a follower of Ahlul Bayt, and until today you haven't read it, then you haven't lived as a follower of Muhammad. You haven't lived. What have you lived as? You've lived as someone who learned from the message of this man's father, but you never saw the document which he left behind. Risalat al-Huquq was a document whose aim was to reform Islamic society. The part of Risalat al-Huquq I have chosen today is right number 21. The right of the father in Islam. Because we know very well, our fathers can make or break our lives, without a doubt. If you are blessed with a father who is honorable, a man of dignity, a man of respect, that father can act as a leader for you in your life, without a shadow of doubt. If, however, your father is someone who, for example, has no respect for themselves, does not bother to help you in your life, there is no love shown between him and you as a son or you as a daughter, then you find that often you are misguided. Risalat al-Huquq, right number 21, is the right of the father. Let's see what the Imam says and break it down to understand our relationship with our fathers on a night like this. The Imam says, وَأَمَّا حَقُّ أَبِيكَ فَتَعْلَمَ أَنَّهُ أَصْلُكَ وَأَنَّكَ فَرْعُهُ وَأَنَّكَ لَوْلَاهُ لَمْ تَكُنْ فَمَهْمَا رَأَيْتَ فِي نَفْسِكَ مِمَّا يُعْجِبُكَ فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ أَبَاكَ أَصْلَ النَّعْمَةِ عَلَيْكَ فِيهِ. Let's see what he says. He says, know that the right of your father is that he is your root, you are his branch. And were it not for him, you would not be. So whenever you see something in you which impresses you in your life, know that your father is the root of that blessing. And thank Allah and perform great praise towards Allah. Let's break down this into 3 sections. The first one says what? أَمَّا حَقُّ أَبِيكَ فَتَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ أَصْلُكَ وَأَنَّكَ فَرْعُهُ وَأَنَّكَ لَوْلَاهُ لَمْ تَكُنْ. It seems quite self-explanatory. The right of my father, he is my root, I am his branch. If it wasn't for him, I would not be. It seems self-explanatory that I as a human being cannot come into this world without my father. My father comes in union with my mother. My mother, after a period of carrying me in her womb for a period of, let's say, between 6 to 9 months, my mother would then bring me onto the earth. Without my father and my mother coming together, there is no way that I can come towards this earth. If it was that simple, the Imam wouldn't mention this. But when the Imam says, أَمَّا حَقُّ أَبِيكَ فَتَعْلَمَ أَنَّهُ أَصْلُكَ وَأَنَّكَ فَرْعُهُ وَأَنَّكَ لَوْلَاهُ لَمْ تَكُنْ, what is he trying to say? He's trying to say that you as a human being, Your psyche and your development needs to know that your father is your root. In other words, what? In other words, you as a human being need to know who your father is in this world. As in, it's a source of pride for a human being when he looks towards his father and says, that's my father. That human being, that child, when they grow up in the world and say that that's my father, it's a source of pride for them in knowing that I have an origin which is pure, an origin which is clean. I know where my father is. I have that relationship with them. Someone says, well, why would that be important? It's because there may be times in our history as human beings where you have societies where children don't have a clue who their father is. And when a child does not know who their father is, then that child psychologically is affected as they grow up in the world. Why? As in, you can imagine, if you're at school as a child, you can see that everyone's father comes to pick them up. But you look for your father. Someone comes to you and says to you, where is your father? You say, I don't have a father in my life. You don't have a father in your life. Why? As in, is your father passed away? No, my father hasn't passed away. And why don't you have a father in your life? I don't know, I was born into this world with only my mother. She claims my father is not in our life anymore. That human being psychologically is affected. Why? Because when Imam says حق أبيك تعلم أنه أصلك أنك فرعه وأنك لولاه لم تكن, you as a human being need to know who your father is. A human being who lives in a society devoid of knowing who their dads were is a human being who socially finds a stigma which affects their life. As in, you imagine each one of you when you say that that's my dad, it's a source of pride. Imagine you have a friend who says, I don't know who my dad is. That is something of a negative feeling in that person. And that's why you find, unfortunately, in the world today, how many children grow up not knowing who their dads were. As in, you know, when you see on these television programs the Jerry Springer and all of these things, when a lady comes on and she's pregnant and they ask her, who's the child? Who's the father? Someone comes out, DNA test, not him. Who's the father? Someone comes out, DNA test, not him. 15 minutes later, who's the father? After having gone through about 20 fathers, nobody knows who the father is. You found on these other shows as well that when these children come into this world without knowing who their dad is, that child has a stigma inside them. That child, which is meant to know that their root is a pure root, comes into this world not knowing who their dad is. It shows there's a virus in that society. And believe me, that virus is growing today. Do you know how many single mothers there are in this world who, because of one night relationships, cannot ever tell their children who their fathers were? When their child comes into this world, everyone else says they've got a father, but that child says, I never met my father. It's a stigma that remains in the life of the child forever. Everybody else can point to a father figure, but they can't. And in Islamic history you find that even the most famous of personalities, when they didn't know who their fathers were, it would be a stigma that remained in them forever. Let's look at a few examples. Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As, as we know in Islamic history, is seen as being a person who was a companion of the Prophet. Later on he becomes the vice minister of Muawiyah's government. Amr ibn al-As, all his life, there would be one stigma that remains in him forever. What is it? Not knowing exactly who his father was. Why? Because the narrations, what do they tell us? They tell us that his mother had a particular profession where many would be able to enter her household. And you find that this mother, when these people would be able to enter the household in this way, this mother, what do you find? You find that when she gave birth to her son, she was uncertain who's the father. As in, originally there was no such thing as Amr ibn al-As. Originally his name was Amr, that's it. Nobody would give a father figure to him. When she gave birth, of course, this was a source of embarrassment for her. That she wanted to make sure that her son was someone who could be called by his father's name. So what did she do? In those days, she would get a bowl and put 6 names of possible candidates who may be his father. Of those 6 names, she picks the name out. When she picks the name out, you open the name. Like a lottery, like you have today, you open the name. When you open it, what came out? Al-As ibn Wa'il. So when the name came out, Al-As ibn Wa'il, they went on to call him Amr ibn al-As. Would it be stopping there? No, it wouldn't. And Ali ibn Abi Talib at Siffin doesn't call him Amr ibn al-As. Never in the Battle of Siffin will you find one narration where Amir al-Mu'mineen calls him Amr ibn al-As. No. He wants to remind him that from when you were younger, you are of a type of person who never knew who your root was. That's why he calls him Ibn Nabigha or Ibn Nabigha in the narrations. Saying to him what? Saying, I call you by your mum's name. That's where it sticks. By your mum's name. You're fighting me here on the plains of Siffin. When you fight me on the plains of Siffin, everyone can be called by their dad's name. As in even Muawiyah can be called Ibn Abi Sufyan, Ali, Ibn Abi Talib, Malik, and so on. But you will call you by your mother's name. And we'll stop it over there. And the Quran proves this, by the way. The Quran proves that this person did not know who their father was. Why? You've read the ayah in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. In the Quran, in Surah Al-Kawthar, Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. Who does it refer to? Rasulullah, when his sons died, he was sad. Al-As ibn Wa'il came to the Holy Prophet. He would make fun of him, saying, Muhammad, where's your sons? There's not going to be anyone who continues your lineage. The Quran came down and said, Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar. When Fatima was born to Rasulullah, Allah said, we've given you Kawthar. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. Al-As ibn Wa'il, it's your line that will never continue. Therefore, those who say that Al-As ibn Wa'il is his father, no, his line, the Quran says, will not continue. There is no lineage for that line. At least Amr ibn al-As, people called him by a father's name later on. Imagine after Rasulullah passed away in the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Muawiyah's governor of Kufa, what was his name? Ziyad ibn Abi. As in Amr ibn al-As, at least someone called him Ibn al-As. Ziyad, they called him Ziyad ibn Abi, meaning what? Ziyad, son of his father. When you call someone Ziyad, son of his father, it really goes to show you that this person has not got a clue who their father is. Or another thing, or that he knows who his father is, but his father's committing of adultery with his mother would mean you don't name the name. You know Zuhair ibn al-Qayn. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn on the 10th of Muharram comes out in front of Shimr bin Dil-Joshan, in front of all the Kufans. He says to them in reference to Ibn Ziyad, he says, don't follow the grandson of Sumayyah. When Zuhair ibn al-Qayn says it to Ibn Ziyad and says it to the army, don't follow the grandson of Sumayyah, what's he saying? He's saying this Ubaydullah, his dad is who? Ziyad. And this Ziyad, his mother Sumayyah, in an adulterous relationship with Abu Sufyan, that's how Ziyad came in this world. You find Zuhair ibn al-Qayn says to him, says to them, don't follow the grandson of Sumayyah. In other words, this Ziyad had to walk around. Everyone doesn't call him Ziyad ibn X. They say, no, Ziyad ibn Abi. Whoever his dad was, we'll keep it at that. And you know what the irony is? Muawiyah later on comes and says, what's all the trouble you call him Ziyad ibn Abi? My father's the one who was with his mother. Call him Ziyad ibn Abu Sufyan. Arrogance. What arrogance? My father is the one who was with his mother. What's the point? The hadith said of the Imam, وَأَمَّا حَقُّ أَبِيكَ فَتَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ أَصْلُكَ وَأَنَّكَ فَرْعُهُ. The beginning of the development of any human being is being proud of who their father is, knowing who their father is. If you go out in the world and you don't know who your father is, it's a stigma. When Al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi caught the 10 horse riders who trampled on the body of Imam al-Hussein, you know, Ya Khayl Allah al-Kabi wa Tusi, Sadr al-Hussein, when Umar ibn Sa'ad told the 10 horse riders, those 10, Mukhtar said to them, who are you? They gave their names. He said, what's your dad's names? So we never met our dads. Never met our dads. They pick them up from areas where there's no relationship. And I tell you, history repeats itself. I don't need to go into politics, but history repeats itself. Sometimes you may get a dictator, and he didn't even know who his dad was. But the point was what? The point was that Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, he found those 10, they didn't even know who their dads were. You find that the Imam highlights from the beginning that the root of any father-child relationship is that the child actually appreciates the purity where his father came from. And that's why the discussion always comes up in Islamic thought that women always ask the question, why can't we marry four? We want to marry four. It's not fair you men can marry four. Even though that's right, doesn't even exist for many men these days. But you come forward and say, men come forward and say, we can marry four. Women say, why can't we marry four? Would you believe that Abu Hanifa, the Imam of the Hanafi school of fiqh, he called himself Abu Hanifa, his daughter Hanifa, and he had sons, but he named himself after his daughter. Because when Abu Hanifa was asked, why is it that women aren't allowed to marry four, but men are? He said, I don't know. His daughter Hanifa came to him. She said, Dad, Amir al-Mu'mineen has answered this question. He said, so what do you mean? She said, Ali ibn Abi Talib has given an answer to this question already. He said, tell me, my daughter. She said, Ali ibn Abi Talib, one day 40 women came towards him. They said to him, why is it that men are allowed to marry four, but women aren't allowed? Amir al-Mu'mineen said to all of them, can you all pick up a ball? They said, yes. He said to all of them, do you see that empty fountain that is there? They said, yes, we see an empty fountain. He said, get your bowl of water and go and put that bowl of water into that fountain. 40 women went with their bowl of water, they put it into the fountain. Now the fountain was full of water. When they came back to him, they said, well, what do you want us to do now? He said, now go and use your bowl to take the exact water which you put in there. So they said to him, we don't know exactly whose water went where. He said, likewise, if you are allowed to marry four, then you won't know whose water is going where, isn't it? As in, before you know it, you're not sure even of the parentage. Of course, someone could come today and say, well, Sayed Ammar, genetically, DNA-ically, and all of these things, now we can tell. What, you want to reduce us to that? You want to reduce us now to everybody having partners and swapping partners? The point was what? The point was that the root is our father, and we are his branch, and were it not for him, we would not come into the world. Then what does he say? فَمَهْمَا رَأَيْتَ فِي نَفْسِكَ مِمَّا يُعْجِبُكَ فَعْلَمْ أَنَّ أَبَاكَ أَصْلَ النَّعْمَةِ. This is a fantastic line by Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He says, whenever you see anything in yourself which makes you proud, know that your father is the root of that blessing. Why? Because sometimes we just pick up 1 or 2 degrees and we start telling the world, look at what I've achieved. When you've picked up 1 degree, you find some children, what will they do? Some youth, he's picked up a degree. They ask him, how did you get that degree? He says, it's all my hard work. Say to him, how did you buy that car? It's all my hard work. How did you build that house? It's all my hard work. How did you achieve your good reputation? It's all my hard work. You don't know about the years your father sweated it out so that you could become what you are. You don't know about the nights when your father would sit up awake, worried for you to become what you are. You don't know the hours your dad sat down thinking about you for you to become what you are. Do you not know how many supplications your dad would recite for you when you don't look at him for you to become who you are? And now when you think you've become something in life, you start telling the world, it's me who achieved all of this? You find that this affects us. Some of the youth in the world today, when they achieve just a little bit of success, instead of going to kiss the hand of their father, who helped them in their track, who gave them support which they saw and which they didn't see, you find unfortunately today some of the youth all start bragging about themselves that they're the ones who achieved it. Imam says, فَمَهْمَا رَأَيْتَ فِي نَفْسِكَ مِمَّا يُعْجِبُكَ فَعْلَمْ أَنَّ أَبَاكَ أَصْلَ النَّعْمَةِ. Whenever you see something in yourself that makes you proud, even your good looks, your father was part of it as well. You go and tell the whole world that this is how I am. Your father is the origin of that blessing. And that's why you found, what does our Imam say? He says, your father has 4 rights over you. These rights are of the utmost importance. That whenever you remember something which is great in you, your father's the root. What are the 4 rights? Number 1, never walk ahead of your father when he's walking into a gathering. Your father's walking in somewhere, don't walk ahead of him. Until my father enters the gathering, then I enter. If my father hasn't entered the gathering, I'll wait. I'll wait for him to enter, then I'll enter. Then the Imam says, don't sit before he sits. Today, you find people who find it normal that they'll sit down even though their father hasn't sat down. I remember one of the speakers of Ahlul Bayt, a very good friend of mine, when his father would sit on the minbar, When his father's walking in towards the minbar, wherever he is, he'll stand up until his father sat down on the minbar, then he sits back down. Wherever he is. He'll never sit before his father sits. Today, subhanAllah, we come back home when we've all gone out as a family. You come back home, the father's just about putting his jacket on, the kids are already on the remote control watching television. You come for the dinner, the father's still coming in, and you find the kids are already on the table eating. Imam says, don't sit before he sits. Don't walk ahead of him. He also, what does he also go and say? Don't call him by his name. Today, subhanAllah, calls him by his name. Even in this, The Simpsons, he always says to him, Homer, Homer, doesn't he? Bart never calls him by his name. He always says, Homer, Homer, Homer. Even the one time Bart was a baby and he remembered his dad, and he's trying to remember what was the first words he said. Was it dad? Was it Homer? And he said, Homer. Even that was his first words. Today you hear people saying, hey, Nicky, come here. Steve, come here. You say to him, who's Nicky and Steve? He says, my dad. Why your dad? You call him by his first name. You find the Imam says the third right of your dad. You don't call him by what? You don't call him by his name, rather you call him by a title. In the Quran, whenever you see a son speak to his dad, always Ya Abati. Isn't it? Ya Abati. He doesn't say Ya Ibrahim, if'al ma tu'mar. Ya Abati, if'al ma tu'mar. Satajiduni insha'Allah minal sabirin. So the point here is the third one is that you don't call him by his name, but the fourth one Imam mentions is important. You don't act in a way which brings abuse to your dad's reputation. That's a major problem we have today. You as a young man or as a young woman, that dad works so hard to build your reputation, to build your life, to work his socks off so that you can be something. And instead you ruin his reputation in the community. Like your dad, when he walks into a mosque, he wants to hold his head up high. That's my son. That's my daughter. That's someone I'm proud of. Today there are dads who walk into mosques, he puts his head down because he knows people know how his son behaves. He knows people know how his daughter behaves. Don't get me wrong, what people think doesn't necessarily mean that you're bad, but it has proved to be a long way affecting reputations. Imam says, don't bring backbiting onto yourself. Don't bring ghibah onto yourself. How many dads in communities today can't even go to a mosque because their sons or daughters have damaged their reputations? That when they enter the mosque, everyone's like, look who it is. The one who's got this son or the one who's got this daughter. You as a son or daughter, do you want your dad to enter a mosque proud of what he's brought up, or someone who's embarrassed? Imam says the right of your dad is to understand that you do not perform acts which bring abuse to his reputation. I tell you, sometimes in your life, there are times where even that which is halal, if it may even bring abuse to your dad, try and refrain from it. As in, don't you feel sad when you see people giving bad looks to your dad? Don't you feel sad when everyone says his son is a drug addict, his son is always in the clubs and parties, his son is always of those who is out in illegitimate relationships? Doesn't it hurt you? When your dad can't enter a place without people giving him stares? How many Muslim fathers today, their right was that you don't bring abuse to them, but their sons or their daughters are bringing abuse to them. Imam says the fourth right of your father is that you don't bring abuse towards his reputation. And that's why you find an interesting narration of the utmost importance, not necessarily in the school of Ahl al-Bayt, but in other schools in Islam, that when Nabi Yaqub went to visit Nabi Yusuf, when Nabi Yusuf was a king, Nabi Yaqub, when he came to visit him, Nabi Yusuf, it's narrated that, as you know, he had reached that position as a king. When he came to say salam to his father, other schools in Islam narrate, when he came to say salam to his father, Yusuf said salam from the top of the horse, and Yaqub was at the bottom. So the way he said salam to him, he wasn't doing anything haram, nothing forbidden, but it was seen as an act which wasn't befitting. That the idea is your father is below the ground, get off and come and sit. We of course don't necessarily agree with the narration, but the narration has a point. What's the point? The point is that even now in your life, when your father comes to say salam to you, how many times have you sat in the car, your dad's outside, you say salam to him from the car window? He's standing, you're sitting. You open that door and you go and say salam to him properly and you go and sit back in. Even today I am amazed at some gatherings where a father walks into a gathering, his son sitting down, the father standing, the son stays sitting down. He doesn't get up and wait until his dad sits down. No respect whatsoever. Ahlul Bayt tried to build within the community what? Tried to build this respect for the father that never become arrogant. That you think everything you've achieved in your life is because of yourself. It's because of a dad who used to sweat in the day so that you become what you are. Don't go around saying that you are what you are. That dad was there for you. And that's why the Quran stresses something very important. فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. Do not even utter that off to them when they become elder. I'll tell you why. Because the test with your father isn't when he's young. If your father is a 40-year-old, 50-year-old man, you're alright. The test is when he's older and you start losing your patience with your father. What do I mean? I mean, for example, remember when we were younger, when we'd be late? When we'd be late, when our father would wait for us. How many times did we make our fathers wait? How many times? There were many a time where we made our father wait. Our father would just be sitting there in the car. We'd say 5 minutes. We'd then say 10 minutes. We'd then say 15 minutes. And still, there is no arrival. And then when we come in, there's still that smile on our father's face that he's happy that he's seen us today. Look at us now when we've grown up and they've become much older. The minute they are late, where are you? I have to leave. See the difference? See the difference? Why is he late? What's wrong with the man? Can't he get dressed quicker? When you were younger, how was he looking after you? And now when he is older, look at the rudeness you have towards him. The rudeness that you're saying, where is he? Why can't he get changed quicker? We have to leave. Wait for the man who for years waited for you. For years respected you even though you deserve no respect whatsoever. You're just a child in his life. That movement when the Quran says that when they reach old age, lower the wings of mercy towards them. Those wings of mercy, that father, even the mother, you lower the wings of mercy towards them. And I tell you, brothers and sisters, when you have a father who shows respect towards you in your youth, you're willing to do anything to give back towards that father figure. Hujr bin Adi al-Kindi, may Allah bless his soul. They say if you go to the ziyarah of Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam, the ziyarah is not accepted unless you visit Hujr. And you know Hujr bin Adi, where is he buried? In Marj Adra. Marj Adra was that same area he opened. He opened Marj Adra. And yet later on, you find Muawiyah through Ziyad ibn Abi. Subhanallah, Ziyad ibn Abi as governor curses Ali ibn Abi Talib from the minbar. 1 week after another, he's cursing and he's cursing and he's cursing. Him and Mughira bin Shu'bah. Look what Islam became. Ziyad and Mughira in charge of the states. Cursing and cursing. Hujr bin Ali al-Kindi came out, he stepped up. He said, how dare you curse my master in front of me? You come down from that pulpit now. Ziyad said, you want to speak to me like that? He said to him, we'll kill you and we'll kill anyone who's with you. Ziyad wrote a letter to Muawiyah. He said, Muawiyah, this Hujr bin Adi is causing me trouble. He's cursing Allah. Sorry. All he did was say, stop cursing Ali ibn Abi Talib. He wrote a letter saying, Hujr curses God. Muawiyah at this moment ordered Hujr bin Adi is caught with his son and his companions and the Muwalin who love Amir al-Mu'mineen. When he caught them, what did he do? He caught them and he brought them to Marj Adra. He gathered all of them together, 7, 8 of them. I ask all of you, if you go to Sayyidah Zainab or you go to Sham, visit Hujr bin Adi al-Kindi, go to his grave, then you'll know the meaning of a person whose son loves his father. And when a son knows that everything he's achieved in this world is because of his father, I'll tell you he'll give his life away for his father. Because Hujr was sitting down and Muawiyah comes towards him, he says to him the question, he makes it clear to him. He says to him, is it true that you blasphemed against God? He said, no. He said, so what did you do? He said, I stopped Ziyad from cursing. Nobody curses my master on a minbar while I sit down. He said to him, then let's see if your master will help you. We're going to kill you now. He said, kill me, but keep me in these chains. Don't remove them from me. I want to meet Rasulullah with these chains. And complain to him about what you are doing. Who was next to Hujr? His son. His son was next to him. Muawiyah said to him, what's your final wish before you die? The Arabs have a custom that before they behead you or before they kill you, you have a final wish. He said, kill my son. He said, sorry? He said, kill my son first. He said, kill your son? He said, yes. He looked at the son. The son said, kill me. We can smile. We can smile. But you know what? There's no need to smile. Because now in the world we say people say, I find it hard to be religious. You weren't there at that time when you were losing your life for Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says to him, we'll kill your son. He said, very well. They came and they killed his son in front of the father. Hajar looked and he smiled at them. He said, now I am happy and I'm ready to die. I said to him, why? He said, because now I know that I died with my son dying on the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I feared that if you killed me first, he may leave the love of Ali and go to Muawiyah. But now I saw a son of mine killed with the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now you can take my life away. What better feeling is there than having a son who dies loving Amir al-Mu'mineen? The point here was what? That son, if it wasn't for the respect his dad showed, and if it wasn't for the fact that he knew that nothing in his life in a majlis of Abu Abdullah, they move. How do you get what's up in your houses? Anyway, so you find that if you've got that respect for whom? If you've got that respect for your father, knowing the root and the origin is what? The root and the origin of anything you achieve in life is your father, then you'll give everything away. Someone asked the question, if my father is the root and the origin of my life, and I will not achieve anything were it not for him, that means I can never disobey my father. I say, what do you mean? They say, if my father asks me to do anything, I can't disobey him. No, on the contrary. If your father asks you to disobey Allah, then you have to disobey him. Why? Because there are some people in this world today, in our Muslim communities, they say, but Sayed Ammar, Wallah, my dad told me that I have to do this. My father says that we have to be here. And you know, he's my father, I can't say anything to him. No. Your father, you obey him on the basis that he obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your father, if he's disobeying Allah or asks you to disobey, you have to disobey, but with akhlaq, of course. What do I mean? I mean today in Muslim communities, would you believe, we have something that normally happens in the summer. We have weddings many times in the summer, don't we? Do you agree? In the summertime, there's a lot of weddings. In the summer, when there's a lot of weddings, you normally find that there's two types of weddings in the world today. There's the one I get invited to, which is the boring part of the wedding, you know? When you recite the nikah or the katb kitab, people like me, we get invited for these things. We sit down, we read Quran, someone says something religious, and that's it. Then there's a second part to the wedding I never get invited to. I don't know why. But maybe because people like me were not modern people, as I'm sure you know. And the others are much more modern than people like me. And so you find that that second part of the wedding, what is it? That's when everyone comes out wearing the dresses. And they're wearing the suits. And the music is being played. And everyone's playing about and saying Salaam Alaikum to each other. And dancing and even all of these things, and they're mixing without anyone saying anything. You find some of the sons come and they say, but my dad's saying, you know, it's my cousin's wedding, I have to be there. Disobey him. Disobey him. Your dad on the day of judgment will not come and stand up for you. He's got his own things to worry about. When your dad comes and says, you have to come, it's your cousin's wedding, you say, Dad, hold on. Music is being played and I can't really be there when everyone's dancing to it. Dad, people are mixing. There are women not even wearing hijab the way they should be. I can't be sitting in such a gathering in reality. Okay, at university it's not my choice. Whereas if it's my own community, I would think it's our choice. You find some sons who come out or some daughters and say, but my mom and dad, they said I have to be there. Your mom and dad, when they say you have to be at the majlis of Abu Abdullah, you make a million excuses sometimes. But when it's a wedding, there's no excuses anymore, is there? No, you can use those excuses, don't worry about it. You can come and say to them that I'm not allowed to be in a gathering where haram is being done. I obey you on the basis that you obey Allah's Sharia. The moment you disobey Allah, then I have to disobey you. Because you find in history, it doesn't matter if the dad is not religious, the son may come out religious. Isn't that true? Sometimes the khabith comes out of the tayyib, sometimes the tayyib comes out of the khabith. You find that those sons who came from dads who weren't religious, but they came out as religious, they did it because they recognized, I obey my dad when he obeys Allah. But if he disobeys Allah, then I disobey him. I don't disobey him with rudeness. No, I disobey him in a way where I say that my dad, on the day of judgment, I'm going to be questioned about this act. You can't come and stand as a lawyer for me. I have to answer for my own acts. That's why you find in history, I tell you, some dads who were the worst of the worst, but their sons came out as the best of the best. Yazid killed Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, didn't he? Yazid killed Abu Abdullah. He ordered the killing of Imam Hussein. He had a son called Muawiyah. Yazid had a son called Muawiyah. He named him after his dad. Muawiyah's son, after Yazid had passed away, Muawiyah became Khalifa. He was sitting down in his room. He had these two women who would normally be in each corner of the room. The narrations, what do they state? The narrations state that one day he's trying to get some sleep, but these women are talking too much. So they're talking and talking and talking and talking, and he's thinking, why do these women never stop talking? So he comes towards them, he's about to interrupt them. He hears one saying to the other, I don't care who he is. He has taken the leadership of Ahl al-Bayt. He's listening, is that what you mean, taking the leadership? And the other one said, but he's my beloved. And the other one replied, I don't care. A person who takes the rightful leadership of the family of the Prophet will be punished. He woke, he came out. He said, what did you just say? She said, I didn't say anything. He said, tell me, what did you just say? She said, I said, you have taken the leadership which belongs to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. That's his leadership, it's not yours. He said, you know what, you are right. It doesn't belong to us. And you know what, I am still angered the fact that my father ordered the killing of the grandson of Rasulullah. He could have easily said that my father is a king, my father I have to obey him. No. My father disobeyed Allah, I'll disobey him. He came out and he announced there will be a khutbah. People said, but it's not Jum'ah. He said there's going to be a khutbah. He came out and he said, I resign from the leadership of Bani Umayyah. Let someone else come and take it. This leadership does not belong to us. His mother said, I wish that I was not pregnant with someone like you. He said, I don't care. This leadership does not belong to us. Do you know what happened? He was later poisoned by Marwan ibn al-Hakam. They ended up poisoning him and ending his life. That's Muawiyah ibn Yazid. Then you have, for example, someone like Harun al-Rashid, one of his grandsons. Harun al-Rashid, one of his grandsons, one narrations mention even one of his later sons, used to love Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. Imagine, Harun al-Rashid hates Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. One of his sons loves Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. He would go and hang around with Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. Wherever the Imam goes, he would be next to the Imam. The guards of Harun came to him. They said, look, your son is embarrassing us. He said, how? He said at that moment that they said to him, your son is with Musa ibn Ja'far. He said, don't worry, he's still a kid. When he grows up, I'll give him a castle and he'll forget about these things. When he grew up, they told him that still he's with Musa ibn Ja'far. He said, okay, bring him to me. When he brought him, he looked at the son. He said to the son that, listen, you're embarrassing us walking with Musa ibn Ja'far. I don't allow any of my sons or grandsons to go near Musa ibn Ja'far. He said, on the contrary, you are embarrassing me with your behavior towards Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. He said to him, how dare you speak like that to me? I'll give you any palace and any castle that you want. He said, I don't want any of it. He left. Do you know what he ended up working? A bricklayer. He would lay bricks in Baghdad. Harun Rashid, child, ends up laying bricks in Baghdad. He was employed by someone. He fell ill. The person came to give him his wages. When the person came to give him his wages, he didn't know his name. So he asked him his name. He told him that I'm from the sons of Harun Rashid. He said, Harun Rashid, as in Harun Rashid Khalifa? So he said to him, yes, Harun Rashid Khalifa. This person, his face changed color. Because he's thinking, I'm employing the son of the Khalifa. And I haven't even paid him yet. So the son looked, he said, wait, don't worry. He said to him that, here is my ring. Take my ring and give it to my father. He's good at collecting things for the dunya. And as for the Quran, you take it. Because I want to collect that which is important for akhirah. And now I have to leave you. He said, what do you mean leave me? You're ill, you're on your bed. Where are you going to go? He said, I see Amir al-Mu'mineen coming towards me now, to come and take me away from this world. And we know very well in the hadith of Ahl al-Bayt that Ahl al-Bayt may come to us in our final moments. For those sincere believers, they may come. You find that this person, his dad, he could have easily said, my dad's not religious, I have to obey him. No, no, no. You have your life, your dad has his life. Don't make excuses that my parents aren't religious and that's why I have to do what I do. You have your life, your father has his life, and you have to make sure you make decisions on a day where your mal, your banoon, your parents will not have any effect on you. You find likewise that Umar bin Abdul Aziz, his father-in-law is Abdul Malik bin Marwan. His uncle is Marwan ibn al-Hakam. From every angle, Umar bin Abdul Aziz is in the middle of Bani Umayyah, right in the middle. Yet Umar bin Abdul Aziz, in his life, he is the one who stopped the la'na on Amir al-Mu'mineen on the Fridays. He is the one who gave Fadak back to Fatima al-Zahra's children. He gave it back to Imam al-Baqir. He is the one who stopped the torture on Imam Zayn al-Abidin in Medina. Because Imam Zayn al-Abidin in Medina, there used to be a governor of Medina called Hisham ibn Ismail. Hisham bin Ismail, do you know what he used to do to Imam Zayn al-Abidin? And I want you to take this story as an example for each of you in your life. Because this story had a profound effect on me in my life. Hisham bin Ismail used to, whenever Imam Zayn al-Abidin leaves his house in Medina, he comes and barges him. Imagine, I leave my house, I'm leaving to go to the mosque, someone comes and he pushes me like that. He wants to see me retaliate. He tells the children, pick up things and throw it on Zayn al-Abidin. And he'd walk, Imam would walk, he wouldn't say anything. He'd just remain humble. Umar bin Abdul Aziz became governor of Medina after Hisham bin Ismail. The first thing Umar bin Abdul Aziz did, he put Hisham bin Ismail, he chained him. He chained him. He said, anyone who's been hurt by Hisham bin Ismail, let him come and take his revenge. Imam Zayn al-Abidin's companions came to him. They said to him, oh Zayn al-Abidin, guess who was caught? He said, who? They said, Hisham bin Ismail. And now he's been chained by Umar bin Abdul Aziz. Anything you want, we will do to him. Do you know what the Imam replied? He said, go to Hisham bin Ismail and whisper in his ear, if he is hungry, we'll feed him. And if he's thirsty, we'll give him water. And if he has an outstanding loan, we'll pay the loan. Today in Muslim communities around the world, one issue divides us, isn't it? One issue. And this ihsani and that ihsani and this mosque and that mosque. And this person. Well, it's ridiculous, I tell you. I don't know, are we following Ahl al-Bayt or we're following ourselves? Honestly, I don't know. As in Hisham bin Ismail is torturing this man. He's torturing him. He throws stones at him. He barges him. And he says, tell him we'll feed him and we'll give him water. And it's true. Imam Zayn al-Abidin saw Hisham. He was chained. Imam came near Hisham. He whispered in his ear. He said, oh Hisham, if you are hungry, I'll feed you. And if you are thirsty, I'll give you water. And if you have a loan, then I will pay for your loan. Would you forgive your enemy in this way? I ask you, brothers and sisters, you who claim to love Al-Muhammad, would you forgive or no? As in our communities today, when we have problems between our mosques, when we have divisions in our mosques over the most stupid issues. Stupid issues. We have problems with each other, we don't forgive. Because one big guy who claims to be something in this world, even though nobody will remember him even when he dies, this guy always with the loudest mouth causes all the trouble between our communities. One here, one there, one everywhere is a cancer in our communities. Whereas you find our Imam, he says, forgive him, look after him, whatever he needs, we will protect him with it. And that's why Umar bin Abdul Aziz himself narrates, he says, when people used to say to me, Umar, you are inspired by God the way you behave, he said, if I am inspired by God, then how about Zayn al-Abidin? As in Zayn al-Abidin must be inspired much more than I'm ever inspired. And you find that the last part, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, what does he say? He says, when you therefore have known the rights of your father, then thank Allah and praise Him. Because you should be honored when you have a father who's looked after you in your life, who's protected you. And you therefore have to look after your father in every moment of his life, even until the end of his life. As in even towards the end of his life, you would find it an honor that you are there to stand alongside your father in his final moments. If your father is taken to hospital, those of you who saw or heard your father died, Wouldn't you want to have been next to your father at that final moment? Some were honored to be next to their father. Others no. Others had a phone call that your dad has died. How did you feel when you couldn't be there next to your dad? When you heard the news that your father's passed away? It's the worst feeling, knowing your father's died and you're on the other side of the world, not being able to be next to your father. And how about that feeling when you're next to your father and you see him die? At least you could say, I was next to you. And how about that feeling when you see him die, but he died in peace? Isn't that a feeling? Isn't that a great feeling that you see your dad dying in peace? You could say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un, my father died in peace. But imagine that you weren't able to be next to your father when he died. And imagine when your father needed your help, you couldn't help him. And imagine sitting by his body and not seeing the whole body there. Imagine only seeing a body but without seeing a head next to your father's body. As in normally in the sunnah of when you bury your father, normally the sunnah is what? Is that you put his cheek on the dust. Don't you? You put his cheek on the ground. They say when you remove part of the kafan, put that cheek on the ground. That is if your father's head is actually connected to his body. Because normally you'd want to make sure the father's head is on the body. So you can place that cheek on the ground. Normally you want to make sure when your father dies, you open up the buttons of his shirt. So you make sure that when he's dying, he's not choking in his final moments. You don't ever want to find out that your father's shirt wasn't open, that rather a dagger went through the neck of your father when he was on the ground. Imagine how difficult it was for Imam Zayn al-Abidin when he had to come back to bury his father's holy body on a night like this, on the night of the 13th of Muharram. Those of you who've buried your dads, you're the only ones who could tell what I mean when I say all of this. That on the night of the 13th of Muharram, when it came towards burying his father, he came back towards the land of Karbala. He was covered all in black. He entered the land. Banu Asad were already in the land. They were already looking around. Why? Because Bani Asad said, we weren't at Karbala, but we feel that it's our role to make sure that we come and bury the holy bodies in Karbala. Bani Asad were looking around, but there's a problem. Normally you would be able to bury a body, but you don't know which body belongs to who, because there are no heads on these bodies. Forget there are no heads. There are some of these bodies that have been mutilated so much, you have to gather pieces together. Especially people like Ali al-Akbar, his body was absolutely mutilated by the opposition. Someone like Abu Abdullah, you don't know if it's his body because there's no head next to the body. You don't know whose body belongs to whom. They were looking around, they were wondering, how do we bury these bodies? All of a sudden someone came to them. He said, I see a man dressed in black coming towards us. Maybe he's from the soldiers of Ibn Ziyad. Remove yourselves from him. When the man came, he removed the cloth from his face. They said to him, he said to them, what are you doing here? They said to him that we have come just to look at what happened here. He said, no, please tell me, what are you doing here? They said, we have come to bury the body of Imam al-Hussein and his companions, but we don't know which body belongs to whom. He said to them, why? They said, because there aren't any heads on these bodies. They beheaded these holy bodies, and some of them, when we pick them up from the right, the left falls on the ground. When we pick up from the left, the right falls on the ground. And there's one body, there is no hand next to him. He's just lying by a river and we don't know how to pick up his body. Imagine that body that lay by the Furat, which did not have anybody next to it. Imam Zayn al-Abidin looked towards them. He said to them, allow me to guide you as to how you bury the holy bodies. And they said to him, what do you want us to do? He said to them, I want you to dig 3 different graves. And they said to him, who do the graves belong to? He said to them, the first of the graves belongs to Habib ibn Mudahir. The second of the graves belongs to the family of Rasulullah. And the third of the graves belongs to the companions of Imam al-Hussein. Hussein, they put the bodies in their respective graves, and then when they had finished with the bodies, he said to them that I'm going to bury a body, but I don't want any of them to join me. They said to him, why? He said, because I have helpers who will be alongside me, who will join me when I come to burying this body. He began to walk towards the body of Imam al-Hussein. It would be the first time that he comes near the body of his father. He doesn't know what they've done exactly to his father. He comes near the body, he's getting closer. He then sees the body of Imam al-Hussein, but without the head of his father. He sits by the body of Imam al-Hussein. He wants normally to put a head, to put the cheek on the ground, but there's no head there. And then he asked them, he said, do you mind helping me? They said to him, what? Listen to this line. They said to him, what? He said, get me a prayer mat. They wondered, why does he want a prayer mat? Is it because he wants to pray? No. He got the prayer mat and he began to collect the pieces of the body of Imam al-Hussein. He gathered the pieces of the body of his father. He put them all in the prayer mat. He then finished with his father's burial. Then he turned around to them. They said to him the following line. And they said to him, there's a body that lies by the Furat. When we lift the right side of the body, the left falls on the ground. When we lift the left side, the right falls on the ground. He looked towards the Furat and he called out, Assalamu alayka ya Qamar bani Hashim. He began to walk near the body of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. He came near that body. Normally he would want to embrace that, but he saw an arrow in the eyes of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. Normally he'd want to embrace the hands, but he didn't see any of the hands of his uncle. He picked up the right side and the left began to fall on the ground. He lifted the left side and the right began to fall on the ground. He began to cry while sitting by the body of his uncle Abu Fadl.
Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Raise your hands, brothers and sisters. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and like Muhammad, to allow us to be amongst the companions of Imam Sahib. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to receive the intercession of Imam al-Hussein in this world and the hereafter. We pray for all the originators of this majlis, that Allah blesses them and enshrouds them with His mercy. Allow us to be in the land of Karbala this time next year, next to the shrine of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all our brothers around the Islamic world. Inshallah, tomorrow will be the final of the 3 majalis. At the same time, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with Surah Al-Fatiha, but before it, the loudest of your salawat.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Can I get the brothers to remain in their seats for a couple of minutes, please? As you all may know, in the battle and in Karbala, on the land of Karbala, the enemy, when they looked at Imam Hussein alayhi salam, most of them, they cried. And they said, they issued one statement to the Imam. They said to him, our hearts are with you, but our swords are against you. They could not come to the realization that they had to give up what is valuable to them, which is their lives for the Imam. Now we here fall under the same situation. We could either come to the Imam and his majalis and we say to him, you know what? We could come, we listen to your majalis, but we're not going to pay anything, we're not going to give anything valuable in order for your message to continue. Now brothers, the responsibility falls on you. Either you be with Imam Hussein alayhi salam and you have to give from your time, from your money and from everything that you hold values for the sake of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Otherwise, we as good as those who fought the Imam with the intention of loving him. That's on one point. The second point, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he went to Karbala, he was prepared. He was prepared, he knew who he's taking and who's going to be doing what and who is going to be killed where. Now unfortunately when we come to the Majalis of Abu Abdullah, we know someone's going to come and ask for donation, yet we say, you know what, I'll let someone else pay. Brothers and sisters, it does not take you more than a couple of seconds to go to an ATM and get $100 and $50 and give it to Abu Abdullah Hussein, that one day, on the day of judgment, you will serve as something that you will need the most. So brothers and sisters, I cannot stress enough on the fact that we have to pay in order to keep this majalis going. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's going to be a prayer jama'ah inshallah after the majlis inshallah, and after the salat we're going to be heading towards World of Chaos. We're going to have dinner with Sayed Ammar. For those who are interested to join us and have a conversation with Sayed Ammar, please approach me. I have the tickets, and for the donation of the envelopes, there's 2 boxes outside, so please make sure you put the envelopes and any extra donation on outside. There's one at the ladies' side as well. And thank you very much for coming. And inshallah the program tomorrow will start at 6:30 as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Rahim. चादर में लपेटना पड़ता है।